Simone Hart grew up in a brick duplex on Detroit's west side where the radiator hissed in winter and the porch was everybody's front row in summer. Her mama, Denise, was a postal clerk who wore her hair in a tidy bun and kept a drawer of stamps like other women kept jewelry. Her father, Mr. Hart, had left when Simone was 8. He came back sometimes with a bag of White Castle and stories that took the long way around the block. Mostly it was Mama and Simone, the church down on Joy Road, and a neighborhood that could hold you up or swallow you whole depending on the hour. Simone was the careful kind. She ironed on Saturday night and set out her tights by color. She worked part-time at a bakery all through high school, counted change without looking, and kept her tips tucked in an envelope marked when it rains. She liked to plan. She liked knowing what bus, what stop, what time. She sang alto in the youth choir because somebody had to be the floor. She wasn't fancy, but she was steady. The first time she saw Leon Price, she was 19 and supposed to be buying paper plates at Family Dollar for the church's youth revival. Instead, she followed the current of sound out on the sidewalk, a guitar lick, high and clean, then a voice like a slow river. A small crowd stood outside the corner bar called Ruthie's, where the door was propped open and a fan pushed beer and fry grease into the street. On a makeshift platform near the door, a lean brown-skinned man in a denim jacket sang like he'd lived in that note his whole life. He didn't grind his face like some singers. He just told it. "Who dat?" asked Tash, Simone's cousin, popping gum and squinting. "He a regular." "Leon," said an auntie type on the sidewalk, leaning on a cane. "That boy's mama, Miss Gwen, sing first soprano at second Ebenezer. His daddy played bass for everybody in this city before his liver quit. Leon got all of it in him. Don't you get too close. Music is a jealous wife." Warnings arrived like mail addressed to current resident. Simone tucked them in her pocket and kept listening. Leon finished the song, nodded humble, then smiled the kind of smile that made people step forward without meaning to. He looked up, caught Simone's eyes, and held, not long, not rude. Afterward, he came outside, the strap of his guitar case over his shoulder, and stopped where she stood, as if he'd known the sidewalk would put them together. "You look like you know if I missed a note," he said, grinning. "I'd tell you," Simone said, surprising herself. "You didn't." He laughed soft. "I'm Leon." "Simone." "You sing." "Church." "That's where I learned," he said. "You want to get some fries?" He gestured to the Coney Island 2 doors down. "I don't mix business with pleasure on show nights. Fries ain't either." They sat in a red booth sticky with history, split a plate, and traded short facts. Simone, community college, studying medical billing because it made sense, helping her mama with rent, sings low because she likes holding things. Leon, 24, plays 3 nights a week, 2 of them for tips, writes songs when the city sleeps, wants to cut an EP, wants to do right by his mama and the ghosts that taught me. He made her laugh without trying. He listened like she was saying what he needed. When they parted, he gave her his number written on a receipt. "Call if you want to hear something again," he said, "or if you need somebody to carry a heavy thing. Mama listened once, the way mamas do." Let Simone say Leon's name, asked 2 questions, and then folded her lips. "I respect music," she said, not unkind. "I respect the road less. The road claps loud, and then it gets quiet. Watch a man in the quiet." "I will," Simone said. She meant it. She also let him call. There were dates, cheap ones, joyful ones, midnights with coffee and talking under a busted streetlight that flickered Morse code. There were small gifts, weathered vinyl from a thrift store, a book of Gwendolyn Brooks poems, a harmonica he said she couldn't learn because her mouth was too sweet, and she took that as a dare. There were early red flags dressed in compliments, bartenders who knew his favorite, backup singers who squeezed him a beat too long, the word almost showing up too often in his mouth. There were honest things, too. He visited his mother every Thursday, fixed her porch light without telling anybody, carried groceries for Miss Alberta on the corner just because. He had gentleness. He also had hunger. At 21, Simone moved in with him because rent said it was time, and love said maybe this could be a life. Mama kissed her and slipped a 20 into her hand and said, "Keep your own account." The apartment was a second-floor walk-up over a party store, the kind where midnight left you acquainted with the neighborhood's trends. They made a home out of thrifted chairs and a rug from the church rummage sale. Leon hung his guitar on the wall, like a picture, then took it down 3 minutes later because instruments were for hands. The first months were a song that knew its chorus. He played, she worked. They ate fried bologna sandwiches and pretended they preferred them to steak. He came home with tips smelling like smoke and apology. She washed his shirts with vinegar to get the bar out. They loved loud and then soft. They were good to each other in the way young people are when they're trying to prove kindness is a habit they can keep. Cracks came like hairlines under paint. He was late, not just musician late, but I said 8 and meant 11 late. He missed a Sunday with her mama because a studio session ran long, then brought flowers the next morning, like a signature. He took a gig out in Hamtramck that paid $200 in cash and then came home with half of it because the drummer been short on rent. He kept saying it's building, and I'm close, his thumb and finger always an inch apart. Simone wrote numbers in a spiral notebook and put a star next to the ones he said he'd cover. She wanted to believe. She did believe. Belief is its own work. Warnings persisted. The choir director said, "Sing with him, baby, but don't harmonize your whole self to a man who don't keep time." Mama said, "Charisma is seasoning, character is food." Tash said, "Girl, he fine and broke. That is a genre. Proceed." Simone smiled and held her choices like a warm dish. It was still good. She still wanted it. He asked her to marry him in their kitchen on a Tuesday with a ring that looked like a small moon on a thin band. "I ain't promising the road won't call," he said, voice steady. "I'm promising that home is you." She said yes with both hands. They married at Second Ebenezer, lilies and fans, and a suit he'd borrowed from his cousin, who'd outgrown it. Mama cried once in the pew and once in the fellowship hall near the green beans. Leon sang her one verse of "You Send Me," too quiet for most people to hear, and the ones who did pretended their eyes were just sweating. Marriage didn't fix anything, because marriage is not a wrench. It sharpened what was good. The way he rubbed her back with a palm that learned her knots. The way she put foil over his plate and it never felt like settling, and it made clearer what was not. He said yes to a 3-week run to Chicago with a keyboard player who swore the money was good and the rooms were better. Simone said, "We can't afford 3 weeks. We barely affording 3 days." He said, "This is the turn." She let him go because her pride wouldn't let her be the woman who clipped wings. He called from the road irregularly, sometimes 3 times in a day, sometimes not at all for 2. He texted pictures of selfies with people who would be strangers by next Tuesday, a shot of an empty instrument case with sold-out tape to it, a blurry photo of a plate of eggs with hotel breakfast typed under it like a joke. She texted back pictures of the laundromat and her feet in socks and the sky between buildings at 7:10 a.m. when the bus came on time. The first week, she missed him so much it felt like illness. The second week, she was mostly angry. By the third, she understood a truth she did not want. This life was not a pause. It was the shape. He came home road-tired and glorious, smelling like cities, his voice full of stories that didn't include her. He put cash on the table and a T-shirt that said Buddy Guy's Legends on her lap. He cried in her neck and said, "I'm sorry for every hour you held down." She forgave because she wanted to, and because wanting to is often enough to make a thing real for a while. Money did what money does. It told the truth with numbers. Simone picked up more hours at the clinic she'd transferred to after school. She balanced the ledger with compromise and prayer. When a check bounced and the landlord's patience turned thin, Leon pawned a second guitar, not the main one, and promised to buy it back. "Soon as this next thing hits," he said, and she drew a star next to pawn in the spiral and wrote soon in pencil because ink would have been dishonest. Rumors floated in from rooms she didn't go to. Women who loved music love men who make it. Leon loved being loved for what he made. Simone tried not to be jealous of applause because it was a shapeless thing. No one to confront, no evidence to screenshot. But jealousy still came. A bar back told Tash that he'd seen Leon laughing hard with a woman in braids at 2 a.m. A singer posted a picture with Leon's hand on her shoulder and a caption that said some people just get it. A text pinged after midnight from a number saved under a man's name asking you up? That Simone saw because she was feeding the radiator again with a wrench, and the message lit the room like an omen. She didn't flip out. She asked, "Tell me I'm not stupid," she said, holding the phone like a sandwich she hadn't ordered. He sighed, sat, rubbed his face. "I flirted. I was dumb. I didn't," he stopped. "I didn't take a body home. I took attention home. That's not better." "It's not worse," she said, "but it's not nothing." He put his head in her lap and cried the kind of cry men do when shame is new. She stroked his hair and forgave him again without making a speech. Forgiveness doesn't fix. It clears the room so work can be done. They conceived a child in a window of truce. Simone found out in a bathroom at work, sat on a closed toilet and let her hand shake. Mama hugged her, so long the baby, probably learned Grandma's heartbeat first. Leon lifted her and spun her like rent wasn't due. He promised the road would bend toward home. He meant it that day. Pregnancy slowed her body and sped everything else. Leon took daytime gigs that paid less but meant a key in the lock at dinner. He turned down one run, said yes to a 1-week stretch, came back early after Van blew on I-94 and called a sign. He rubbed her ankles, learned to make a decent omelet, practiced a song he'd written for the baby that rhymed dawn with yawn and made her roll her eyes and cry at the same time. He started going to church with her when he could and stood in the back like a sinner everyone already knew about. The congregation did what congregations do. They prayed, they hummed, they watched. Their daughter, Joy, arrived in late winter, a small person with big lungs and hands that gripped the air like she meant to pull herself forward. Simone held her and felt her heart change shape. Leon wept, kissed both their foreheads, and posted picture of 3 fingers, his Simone's, the baby's, like a flag he'd always meant to wave. For 3 months, he was home, so much it felt like a new song. Then the old one started up. A producer from Cleveland called. A singer from Toledo wanted him on a weekend. The Chicago keyboard player from year 1 needed a guitarist for a TV taping that probably wouldn't air but could help. 3 days, he said. Simone stared at the bassinet and counted diapers and said, "Okay," and meant it and hated it. She made him write on a whiteboard in the kitchen. Dates, times, contact names. He meant to keep it accurate. He sometimes did. The breaking point came quiet. It was a Tuesday. Joy had a fever that kissed 102.3 and climbed. Simone texted, "We're going to urgent care." He replied, "In a session. Can I call in 20? She didn't answer because she was strapping a squirming baby into a car seat and hating seat belts with all the passion a new mother can summon. At urgent care, the PA said ears, antibiotics, watch the temperature. Simone wrote it down because she had learned that writing makes instructions real. She got home, gave the pink medicine, lay with the baby on her chest, and texted again, "We're home." Hours. No door. No key. No call. At 11:47 p.m., the lock turned. He came in not drunk, just road-soaked with the attention of a room. He took 2 steps and saw Simone on the couch and the baby in her arms and knew, without language. "I'm sorry," he said. "I couldn't, the session." He stopped lying to himself mid-sentence. "I chose wrong." She didn't scream. She didn't shatter plates. She stood, handed him the thermometer, and said, "You'll need this next place you live." The sentence surprised her by existing. He blinked like he'd discovered a new country on accident. "You leaving?" he asked, as if it might be theoretical. "I am," she said. "Tomorrow I'll be at Mama's. We'll work out visits. We'll work out bills. I won't work out your character. That's your job." He slept on the floor, next to the couch, because he didn't know where else to be. In the morning, Simone packed a bag, folded baby clothes that smelled like laundry soap and new skin, put the spiral notebook in her purse, and walked downstairs. Mama opened the door like she'd been standing there all night. "You hungry?" she asked, which in their family meant you safe. Leon called. He cried. He wrote long texts full of promises he'd made before and new ones he shouldn't have to make. "I'll come home. I'll say no. I'll be accountable. I'll give up the road." She didn't answer with heat. She wrote, "You do those things for you. I'll decide for me," after watching a while. He found a counselor, a man in a basement office who looked like he'd listened for a living since the 70s. He went to AA meetings not for alcohol, he was not a drunk, but for addiction to applause. He learned to say, "I wanted attention more than I wanted to be good." He told a band leader no on a gig he would have sold his shoes for last year. He brought money when he said he would and receipts without being asked. He kept his phone unlocked because he was tired of treating transparency like a performance trick. He wanted it to be a default. Simone did her work too. She went to therapy, where the counselor asked questions like, "When did you stop believing your needs are reasonable?" She slept at Mama's with Joy in a crib that once held the baby version of Simone, and with the radiator singing her back into a childhood she'd left with mixed reviews. She made a budget that did not depend on a man's best day. She returned to choir and sang low like a person building a floor. She did not make speeches about forgiveness, because forgiveness is a small daily key, not a banner you hang and forget to secure at the corners. Church did its thing. People prayed, people speculated, people brought casseroles regardless of the details. The pastor preached, "Grace is not the same as access," and half the sanctuary hummed. Mama held Joy and made her clap on 2 and 4. Tash whispered commentary in the pew and passed Simone a peppermint that tasted like remembering playfulness. Months passed. Leon kept showing up. He slipped once. A DM at 12:22 a.m. turned into 3 messages and a call he did not answer, but didn't block for 2 days because a part of him still wanted to be wanted. He told Simone. She didn't slam the door shut because she'd already closed it to half-open requests. She said, "Make choices that let you like yourself," and watched his face crumple at the idea that his own opinion might matter. When Joy turned 1, they held a party at Mama's. Balloons from Dollar Tree. Cake from the bakery where Simone used to work. Leon arrived early, set up chairs, left on time. He didn't pick up a guitar. He took pictures. He stood in the corner, holding his daughter like an altar that made sense. After everyone left, he asked, "Can we try counseling together?" Not to erase anything, just to see what's left that's worth saving. Simone thought of the spiral notebook with columns labeled rent, light, diapers, self-respect. She thought of his counselor in a basement and his show calendar, now mostly blank except Sundays at a small church where he played background for hymns and nobody clapped for anything. She said yes, with conditions. They wrote them on paper and taped them to the fridge at Mama's because that was neutral territory. No gigs that start after 10. No meetings that can't happen in daylight. All money discussed on Thursdays. 1 night a week for Leon to be by himself doing something that isn't a stage. 1 night for Simone to be by herself doing something that isn't survival. Monthly counseling. A break if either of them says they're drowning. A promise to tell the truth even when it gets you less access, not more. They were not romantic rules. That was the point. They did that for 6 months. He took a job at a music store, Tuesdays through Saturdays, tune-ups and string changes, and teaching 8-year-olds to sit on their hands when they weren't playing. He played Sunday mornings at a storefront church across town where the best compliment was, "You helped me sing." He played 1 Friday night every other month at Ruthie's for old time's sake and left at 10 whether the crowd begged for more or not. He came by Mama's 3 nights a week at 6 on the dot, bathed Joy, read her goodnight moon. Left at 8, texted home at 8:17. Simone's anger softened like bread you thought was stale, but was only hardened by air. She didn't move back in. She also didn't write the divorce papers she'd printed once in a late night and left in a drawer next to the battery stash. She watched him build a person. She built one too. The day she decided to try again, there was no epiphany, no applause. It was raining steady. The roof at Mama's pinged the way it does before a good leak. Leon came by with Joy's boots and a small bag of Dominican pastelitos from a spot somebody at the store had told him about. He took a look at the ceiling, got a ladder from the basement, climbed up into the crawl space, and put a bucket under the drip like a man who had finally learned maintenance. When he climbed down, wet with the mess of it, he said, "I can stay with the bucket tonight if it keeps dripping." "I got it," Mama said from the table, playing solitaire like a queen. "I've been catching water since '89. She looked at Simone the way old women look when they know the next move before you make it. "Go talk." Simone and Leon stood in the kitchen that had held so many versions of her. "I'm not promising weddings again," she said. "I'm promising to come home for 90 days and see what truth we can stand." "I'll make the bed," he said, "the kind of bed a person can sleep in." They moved carefully. She kept a copy of her keys at Mama's without apology. He kept his counseling. They set the whiteboard back up and wrote dates and small joys. Rent paid, diaper stash, chicken sale at Meyer. Joy learned to say daddy and no in the same week and applied both liberally. Leon learned recipes that didn't use ramen. Simone learned to sit down while the pot simmered. They fell asleep most nights, not like a movie, but like people who worked and were tired and happy in a way that didn't advertise. The road still called. It always would, but Leon answered less. And when he did, he put Simone on speaker and put the dates on the board and didn't pretend the road was noble. It was just a job. When a bigger artist invited him for a month-long run to the south, he took the flyer off the fridge before she woke and sat with it. He brought it to counseling. He brought it to Mama, who said, "Baby, what does quiet ask you to do?" He turned it down. He cried later, privately, so he wouldn't turn the no into applause either. Years bend when you keep your head down. Joy went to preschool. Simone took a certification class at night and got a raise. Leon saved for a studio day the slow way, 20s in a jar labeled songs, not excuses. He recorded 4 tracks in a small space on the east side with a producer who liked words better than effects. He released them with no photos of his face, just a picture of a streetlight. They did fine. They did better inside him. On a Sunday in summer, they stood in a park where a community festival turned the block into a family. Leon played at 4, a short set, the sun still high. Simone stood with Joy on her hip and Mama fanning herself and Tash pretending she wasn't crying. He sang the old song like it was new and the new song like it had always existed. He finished, didn't wait for an extra chorus, and walked off the small stage and straight to his family. He didn't look back to see if anyone clapped. "Good," he asked Simone, breath warm, grin small. "True," she said, and he took that like gold. That night they sat on their porch, the neighborhood on low, the hum of air conditioners making a choir of machines. Joy slept, the monitor a green dot. Mama had gone home with her deck of cards and a foil-wrapped plate she insisted she didn't want. Leon rested his hand over Simone's, not a claim, just a cover. "You good?" he asked. "I am," she said, "and I'm not afraid to say when I'm not." "Keep saying it," he said. "I'll keep hearing it." She thought of the warnings, all of them. Music is a jealous wife. Charisma is seasoning. The road claps loud and then it gets quiet. She thought of the boomerang, how it had flown out and slammed and then returned, not to break her, but to put a tool back in her hand. She had used it like a hammer, not a weapon. She had built something. Later, when Joy smacked the monitor with her palm and cried out, Leon went in first. Simone listened to him hum a lullaby, off-key in the best way. She smiled at the ceiling and whispered a thank you she meant for God, for Mama, for herself. On the table inside lay the spiral notebook. Today's list had 5 lines. Keep your own account and your own voice. Love is not rescue. Rescue is not love. Tell the truth before it turns into a performance. The road will always call. Home answers with dinner. If applause stops, the music should still make sense. She capped the pen, turned off the porch light, and went in. The night didn't promise anything. It didn't need to. Peace, she'd learned, wasn't a reward. It was a rhythm you chose and kept. Thanks for watching.